Polar Express. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ring of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear the sounds, though not of the ringing of bells, for outside came the sound of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly round it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest. And then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. He said, "Well, are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This, after all, is the Polar Express." I took his outreached hand, and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies, and with nougated centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights in towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there was no more lights to be seen. We traveled through the cold, dark forest, where the lean wolves roamed around the white-tailed rabbit's head from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along the rolling over the peaks and through the valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a great barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. "They are gathered at the center of the city," the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift of Christmas?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." "Look," shouted one of the children, of the elves. Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As the train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl, and so crowded were the streets of Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped, and the conductor led us outside. We We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver bells that hung from their harness. It was a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and said, pointing out to me, "Let's have this fellow right here." He jumped into a sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on his knee and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the one thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from his Santa sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. He gave me a hug and told the elf to cut a bell from the reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it to Santa. He stood holding the bell high and called, "The first gift of Christmas." A clock struck midnight. The elves roared their approval. Santa handed me the bell and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from Santa's sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeer's names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled above us and then disappeared into the cold, dark, polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see my bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch, and we started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose that bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something for the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands and yelled loudly, "Merry Christmas." The Polar Express let out a long blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened up our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside, there was a silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I took the bell, and it made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," my father said, "it's broken. When I shake the bell, my parents had not heard a sound." At that time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly